Today is Tuesday, February 7th, 2017. We've been gifted with a wonderful trip, vacation with Lori and Trace Goddard, Trace's great-grandma and grandpa. This is their exit interview on the last day of our wonderful, blessed trip. We have a few questions for both of you, and we hope someday that your great-grandson will be able to listen to this. First question's from Jana.
What was it like growing up in the Depression?
Well, I don't remember that much because I was born in 1929, the year the Depression was going on. But my mother and dad said I had to have new shoes, but they had to decide whether I would get new shoes or Daddy would get new shoes. And they made the decision, get me shoes. And that left a big impression on me to realize that during the Depression, parents were worried about their children during that time. What do you know about it, honey?
I don't have anything special about the Depression. There was just, when I was a child, there was just a lot of people who were, I remember, ravaged in poverty. But I didn't think about it. I remember long lines of people waiting to get jobs. But I just thought it was one of the natural things. I didn't realize it was a depression. It was just a tough time for everybody. And the war really World War II really bailed us out of it, because I don't know how much longer it would have gone on had we not opened up our factories all over the world, all over the United States to care for the war.
Right.
Okay, next question, hard-hitting question. How did you decide what career you would follow? Grandma.
Well, I was at St. Olaf College, and I decided I'd be in nursing. But somewhere along the way, I met some teachers, professors that said, maybe you should try teaching. And as I left St. Olaf, I decided I wanted to go into English and psychology. So that's a decision I made, was a teaching.
I think for myself it was just, I'd always thought about broadcasting. I loved it. I used to play radio announcer in the house when I was a young man. And I followed other broadcasters, their biographical background. I just liked it. It was just a profession that appealed to me.
How did the two of you meet?
Do you want to start?
Trace?
No, go ahead.
I was teaching in Albert Lea, Minnesota, and the superintendent of the schools asked me to come in, and he said, Miss Goddard, would you take students up to KGLO, or not KGLO, KATE, and do a national education seminar about them. Take in kids you want. And I knew I would take at least 4 of the students. So I did that, and I took 2 more, so I took 6 up there. I didn't really want to do it, but I did it. And I got up there, and I sat and waited, and suddenly a young, handsome man came out.
A dashing handsome.
Handsome man. And said, we'll help you now. And oh, that's good. And that was Trace. And so I decided it was good. We could do that. So we took the students, and they celebrated National Education Week. Oh, I did too. And I agreed that I'll bring them up next week. We'll bring them up next week. We have all month to do it.
Yeah, that's good.
So I brought them up.
That's a good remembrance.
And as I left, I thought, gee, I wonder if he'll ask me out. And he said, nice to see you. We'll see you around. Oh, he didn't ask me out.
Yeah, that's how it went.
But it was not too long afterwards.
Yeah.
We met on the street, and I was going to dinner. And I was going to stop at the library. And I saw this dashing young man. Ooh, I think I'm in the same street as he is. So we stopped and talked, and he said, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to the library. I'm very casual, I was about it, but I really wanted to go with him. He said, well, why don't you come with me? Oh, I have to go to the library
And
now.
eat, and do a lot of eating.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, that's where it all started.
But listen, I left the library real quickly.
See, yeah.
Yeah. I joined him for dinner. That was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
And that was the start.
Yep.
What type of advice would you give Trace for his lifetime?
Well, I'd tell him to try to develop a strong spiritual backbone to his life in whatever way that comes to him. I don't say it comes to everybody the same. Some through the church, some through just spiritual activities and groups. But yes, that's where it all begins, and that's where his life is going to be built. But I would tell him as soon as he can get with it to start examining possibilities for his life.
I think to definitely be honest and truthful in everything that he did.
Very good.
Okay, last question. It's a big one. What are the changes you have seen in the world?
Oh, good grief.
And what would you like the world to be like for Trace?
Oh, that's a big one.
Big one.
Maybe
hope it's
you
all-
could think of one big
One?
change that impacted you in the world.
Oh, okay. The digital age, of course, came over the top of us before we recognized it was here. And I've never become very proficient or supportive of it. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of the thing that made the greatest impression on me. Can you think of one, hon, that
What about World War II?
it had a deep impression on me, very deep, and it still does to this day. I've done quite a bit of studying on World War II. I lost an uncle there. My father went through an immense immense time of combat that I think had a real negative effect on him. Trying to think. It was just we were surrounded by the war in our thinking and in our planning and in our day-to-day living. Everything was rationed. I remember going to school when I found out my uncle had been killed, and Jesus crying all day through the class, all day until they finally had to tell me to go home. So anyway, it's had a tremendous impact.
Well, I had an uncle with a prisoner of war, and we didn't know where he was. Finally, he was dismissed from that and contacted us, and that made a big impression on the family.
The Red Cross notified you that he was alive.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I was a little girl yet, I think.
Yeah, right. So and the war was very traumatic for us. This wasn't some little military action off in Asia or Europe. This was everyday thinking. It surrounded our lives. And then, of course, the immediate post-war period was dramatic enough. The GIs came home. They were entitled to a free home almost if they wanted it. They got a free education, and many of them were at the University of Minnesota with Lori, and it was just a very dramatic period. Okay.
What would you like the world to be like for Trace?
Well, I just hope and pray that he lives during a period of peace. It's been a long time between periods of peace in our time, and that we could begin to really develop this concept of loving and at least respecting each other.
I know this is a big issue to want the world to do that, but I want them to all realize that there is a God that cares for them. And I hope Trace feels that and can see it in his life. I want him to do that.
And we might add, at this very moment, he is resting up for that big assignment. He's sleeping in the room next door.
We should go see what he's doing right now, so he can
Thank you.
see if we can find him. Oh, here he is, right here. Here he is. Here he comes. There you are.
Oh, he's up?
You've got some good advice from your grandparents to listen to.